Tommy Jaggi here with Marcus Mosher of FanSided. Marcus, we're going to talk about our favorite prospect fits in the upcoming draft. Just a little over a week away at this point. We're going to do a few more shows leading up to the draft, maybe including, Marcus, a mock draft, your mock draft. We're going to get through that as well next week. So make sure you come back for that. You are listening to Stacking the Box, powered by FanSided. Marcus, let's start right here at the top of the list. Caden McDonald, you think he is a great fit with the Houston Texans. Can you explain why you like this fit so much? We're talking about the big Ohio State run defending defensive tackle.
First of all, the reason why we're doing this show is we just wanted to talk about some other prospects that, aren't top 10, top 12 guys, because I feel like we spend a lot of time on the Reuben Baines and the Arvell Reeses and all those kind of guys. So these are 10 guys that are typically being mocked outside of the top 20 that we really like. And Caden McDonald for me is, I think he's clearly the best defensive tackle in the class. Now, he's not a pass rusher, so that's why I think the fit is going to be so important. But going to a team like Houston that already has the best pass rush in the league with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, they don't really need their defensive tackles to create pass rush. What they need them to be able to do is stop the run and plug up holes. So that way they can keep more guys in coverage. They can stay in nickel. And I think Caden McDonald in that Houston defense with D'Amico Ryan would absolutely eat. I think he would gobble up all those double teams. He already makes a bunch of tackles, Tommy. I was looking yesterday, 31 solo tackles for a 315 plus defensive tackle. That is insane. I love Caden McDonald, and I would love the fit in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine what that would do for Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter? Already the best edge duo in the NFL. I mean, you talk about alleviating some pressure there. Great run defender. I agree with you. He's my number one defensive tackle in the class. I actually have him a tier ahead of guys like Peter Woods and Caleb Downs because his niche role is so good. That run defense is going to be lethal at the next level. We've seen guys of that mold, the Snacks Harrisons of the world, last a long time in the NFL, and they just keep finding jobs as those run defenders. It's something you can be good at well into your 30s.
And we should mention with McDonald, because I've seen a lot of people say, like, why not just go out and sign DJ Reader, who's 32 years old? And I think the difference is this is not a guy that is just a run stopper, like a plugger. Like, he actually makes plays. He gets in a bunch of tackles. He'll make plays behind the line of scrimmage. He's just not a pass rusher. Yeah. But that's okay. If you're Houston, you already got the pass rush figured out. You just need to be able to get to third down. And I think Caden McDonald can help you do that.
Yeah, moves incredibly well for his size. Like you said, I don't think he'll ever have elite pass rush production, but he'll do a lot of good things for your defense, alleviate a lot of that pressure, take on those double teams. Caden McDonald, Houston Texans. You talk about a defense that's already a nightmare to face. Adding him to the mix would make it even better. Marcus, let's talk about one of our favorite prospects in this class, and that is Jacob Rodriguez, the Texas Tech linebacker. A bit of an older prospect. Some question how he would test. Would he be closer to the Josie Jewell line? And no, he's tested really well. Production is awesome. Splash playability is there. You turn on the film, and this guy is just making plays left and right. A little undersized, a little compact, but this is kind of fits the mold of today's linebacker. Why is he such a good fit if he lands with the Buffalo Bills?
By the way, we're not just saying that they should draft these guys, in the first round or wherever. We're just generally, I think Rodriguez is a phenomenal fit in Buffalo because they've had a linebacker like this before, and Matt Milano, who was undersized, who was a good athlete, who was instinctful, who made a bunch of plays. And Tommy, when Matt Milano was healthy, Buffalo had one of the best defenses in the league. The issue is that Milano has been unable to stay on the field over really the last 4 seasons. And he's just a shell of his former self. I think this is like the younger, more athletic version of that. And Buffalo desperately needs somebody in the middle of the defense that is just a playmaker. And every time you and I watch the Bills, it feels like they just don't have that guy on defense that can make the big play when it matters. And Rodriguez has got 2 years of unbelievable production. He's got 10 forced fumbles over the last 2 years, 11 pass deflections, 5 interceptions, 21.5 tackles for a loss, and 6 sacks. Like, all this guy did is make plays. And I know he's not for everybody, but I just really like Jacob Rodriguez. And if Buffalo found a way to select him, I would feel so much better about the direction of their defense.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Matt Milano clone in terms of the play style. I actually
Yeah.
watched him back in January, I think it was. And first time I actually put on his tape, and I'm like, this guy he's Matt Milano. He's Sean Lee. Like, he's that mold of linebacker where he's just always around the football, making plays, the interception production, the forced fumble production. I think it's going to translate. And again, you say turnovers are flukies, takeaways are flukies, are fluky, but I feel like when you have that type of instincts at the position, you're going to stumble upon a lot of plays. I think he will at the next level. Obviously had the foot injury back in 2023. I can look past that stuff. And then interestingly, Marcus, spin-off side note here, Dane Brugler came out with the Beast draft guide, the most anticipated draft guide of the year just recently. And he had Jacob Rodriguez over CJ Allen, the linebacker everybody's been talking about, the Georgia linebacker during the pre-draft process. He has Rodriguez higher than that. My wavelength has been on that track the whole time. And I'm like, this kind of fits. It makes sense to me.
He's just an awesome player. And again, we could talk about the value of where Buffalo might have to draft him. That's not the point. It's to talk about, like, I think there are teams like Buffalo and Baltimore and Kansas City, these playoff caliber teams that I think could really use a linebacker like this. And I understand why he's not getting more top 20 hype, Tommy, because he's not big. He is athletic, but he's not particularly long. And usually these linebackers, fall to day two anyway. And there's some, he's a little bit older, but he's just an awesome football player. And I think a smart team is going to get an outstanding player here.
Yeah, and despite being like a quarterback early in his career
Yeah.
and kind of being bounced around the place, I do think he's a pro-ready prospect who can come in and help one of these contending teams right away. Let's talk about the Ravens, who we just mentioned, and why Anthony Hill Jr. would be a good fit for them. Marcus, Texas linebacker, very quick to the football, read react type of player, run and chase linebacker. Wait, you and I have some mixed feelings about Hill in general, but why do you think he's such a good fit if he lands in Baltimore?
Yeah, I mean, we've been pretty clear on Hill. Like, there's a lot of concerns, but I think you put him next to Roquan Smith and you put him in a Jesse Minter defense, I think a lot of those concerns go away. What I love about Anthony Hill is he is a disruptive player. You send him downhill as a blitzer, I think he can be really good. He's got the athleticism and he's got the size. And if you've got the other linebacker that can kind of get him lined up and can do the coverage stuff, I think you can get an awesome player. And I don't see Baltimore having, outside of Trey Hendrickson, that guy that you really can rely on as another pass rusher. We'll see if Mike Green can step up, but I think you can use Hill in a lot of fun and creative ways to help generate that pressure. And Minter is really good at disguising it. I think in a versatile, multiple defense, I think Anthony Hill, who can line up on the edge, who can line up right over top of the center, this is the type of spot where I think he could land. And then we're coming out of the draft thinking, coming out of year one, year two, thinking, how did he not go higher than pick 65 or something like that?
Yeah, I think if we're talking that range and he lands in Baltimore next to Roquan Smith in a Jesse Minter defense, there's a scenario where you can see him being a really good player in that role. Now, go back in Baltimore a few years, different defense coordinator. But when Mike McDonald was there, I mean, Patrick Queen, he made him a Pro Bowl level player playing next to Roquan Smith. Minter, very similar mindset mentality as a Mike McDonald. And in fact, some have thrown that comp out there that we missed out on McDonald. We let him go and we shouldn't have. Now we're trying to make up for that. Lands in Minter's defense next to Roquan to be a box linebacker, to be run and chase downhill. I do think that is a really good fit overall. All right, you are tuned into Stacking the Box, where NFL fans come to talk, celebrate, and debate. For more coverage, hit up fansided.com, powered by the passionate fans at FanSided. Make sure you check out all the great work and draft content over at fansided.com and the FanSided NFL Network. All right, Marcus, let's talk about another linebacker here, kind of in that same range. We're talking mid to late day two range, and that is Kyle Lewis, a guy who is very different in Anthony Hill, is that he is a coverage specialist. In fact, some might even have him as a slot, as a strong safety. Like, what do you do with this guy exactly? Because he is undersized at the linebacker position, even for today's NFL. but the fluidity and the coverage chops are so good. You think he's a great fit for the Colts. Tell us why.
Well, first of all, let's talk about the Colts team. I'm going to read you the linebackers on the roster, and I promise you I'm not making up these names. Jalen Carlisle, Joseph Vaughn, John Bullock, Devin Versuk, and Akeem Davis Gaither. Those are their linebackers currently on the roster. They also don't have a first round pick because of the Sauce Gardner trade. So we could have literally put any linebacker here. It would have been a good fit for Indianapolis. But the reason why I think Kyle Lewis makes a lot of sense is you're playing in good weather, you're playing in a dome, and I think Indianapolis has traditionally built a team based off speed, right? They want to be faster than everybody else. And I think Kyle Lewis as a weak side linebacker, and they've got a pretty good front up there in Indianapolis, and you just let him fly around to the football. I think he can be a real asset. And yeah, you're going to have to protect him, and he's not great at taking on blocks, and he's going to slip. He's going to try to slip the blocks. But I think that is somebody that is a playmaker and a guy that you can get probably in the third round. I think he can be a day one starter for the right team.
Yeah, I don't disagree. At the very least, you should be able to get him on the field right away in sub packages. Nickel linebacker, I think that's where he should excel. Third and medium, third and long situations out there as a coverage guy. We watched this guy at the Senior Bowl, and it was just exceptional. Some of the things that he was doing in one-on-ones that obviously favor the offense. You have a full open field, and he was just amazing there.
It was the best coverage I've ever seen from a linebacker in those one-on-one drills. And the thing I like about Lewis, Tommy, is that he's also really productive. Like there's a lot of times these linebackers will go on day two that are just the pure athletes, and he's a phenomenal athlete, but that don't really have the production, and you're hoping that you develop into good football players. That's not the case for Lewis. He was an All-American in 2024. He was a second-team All-ACC selection in 2025, 24 tackles for a loss, 10 sacks, and 6 interceptions over the last 2 years. Like, all this guy does is make plays. And I understand he's under 6 foot. He's 222 pounds. But he's just a darn good football player. And I'm really hoping he ends up in a situation like Indianapolis where his speed can really be put to use.
Yeah, the body of work is there. Worst case scenario, I think that you're getting a part-time linebacker with a niche role. Best case scenario, he can be a full-time player and just be a guy that you kind of keep free because of the defensive line, and he just makes plays. All right, Marcus, you put this evil on me here. We got to talk about Garrett Nussmeier and his connection with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, you think that he's a fit. Obviously, there are some behind-the-scenes connections. Doug Nussmeier, Garrett's father, was the quarterback's coach in Dallas, overlapped 3 years with McCarthy there. It's not hard to see why Pittsburgh could maybe draft this guy on day two, maybe one of their third round picks. Why do you think this is such a good fit with the Steelers now in Mike McCarthy's offense?
Day two, I was thinking at pick 20. No,
come on.
I think he's a third round quarterback, but I think there's just a lot to like about his game. He's accurate. I think he gets rid of the ball incredibly well. He's very good against zone coverage. He's kind of your pro's pro at quarterback. Like nothing is going to shock him too much. He cut way back on the interceptions. And I think it's for a team like Pittsburgh. If you're spending a third round pick on a quarterback, the idea isn't that he's going to be your franchise quarterback. And I think you and I have had the argument before. If you're spending a third round pick on a quarterback that's not your franchise quarterback, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I also think I think you can make an argument that it's worth having at least good production at the quarterback position to help run your offense and develop your receivers. And I just don't know what Mike McCarthy thinks of Will Howard. We still don't have an update on Aaron Rodgers. I've seen a quarterback in Dallas under McCarthy and Cooper Rush who is far less talented have a lot of success, and the receivers were able to develop, and the Cowboys were able to run their offense well. I think Nussmeier just fits a McCarthy offense really well. And maybe it's not the best fit for Pittsburgh, but I do think it's the best fit for Nussmeier because that's a situation that he could go into and I think play pretty well out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the day two quarterback prospects in recent years, I think it's safe to say that Nussmeier at least has the feel of a high floor, maybe low ceiling type of quarterback. I'm not crazy about the traits. He's obviously very undersized at 6'1" and change, 200 pounds soaking wet. The arm talent, is it a concern? I don't know. I mean, he's got accuracy, and that's obviously one of the most important traits you can have. he had the injuries in 2025. Is he going to get that strength back there? Because it wasn't great to begin with, but I can see how this would work out. I can see why Mike McCarthy would like that for his offense. He wants rhythm, timing, accuracy. Nussmeier offers those things. And can he do it at a high level? Potentially. He's going to have some limitations from a physical standpoint. He's not the most mobile. I think he can scramble good enough, but he will have some limitations. That would be my hang up is all.
Yeah, and I think the arm is actually pretty good. I think, but you're right on the athleticism. Like he moves around well in the pocket, but he's just not a threat as a runner at all. And I know there are teams that feel like in today's NFL, it just hampers your offense so much not having a guy that can run. But I would also argue you're spending a day two pick on a quarterback that I think can keep the offense going and being functional. I like him quite a bit. I'm not saying he should be a first round pick. I'm not saying he should be a top 50 pick, but I do think he's a guy that is going to be a low end starter or a high end backup for a long time in the NFL.
All right, Marcus, let's talk about a wide receiver on the list here. Zachariah Branch, and a guy that is a very polarizing prospect, not because of anything other than really, is this guy a gadget or is he a true wide receiver? The explosiveness is there. You put on some of his film and that what he can do after the catch. I mean, it resembles some Tyreek Hill level stuff. But the problem is before the catch, when you see him run bubble screens and everything is close to the line of scrimmage, can you run the full route tree? Atlanta Falcons makes a lot of sense. You put this as a good scheme fit here. Drake London on the outside. You've got your running back in Bijan. And why do you think that Zachariah Branch would be such an ideal fit for the Falcons?
Well, just for all the reasons you mentioned. They've got their bona fide number one receiver in Drake London. They've got a tight end that they just put on the franchise tag in Kyle Pitts. They've got Bijan Robinson. I think he could be the guy that is taking the Olamide Zaccheaus role, where it's a lot of the bubble screens and the guy that's running opposite field to create some separation and to pull the safeties back. And I don't think you have to do a lot to get him the football. I don't think you have to design tough, targets. I think you can throw him bubble screens. You can throw him slants. I think if you're relying on him to be like obviously your number one or number two receiver, that's going to be a mistake. But in this passing game, he would be the third option at best. And you also have Bijan Robinson, I think, in Atlanta playing in a dome where he can utilize that speed. He can help out as a kick returner. And again, you're drafting him probably late second round, third round. I just think this is a good spot for him to actually be helpful to an NFL team.
You talk about a blend of skill players that would mesh so well together in terms of having opposite skill sets that kind of work in unison. Drake London, the big bodied wide receiver, just a massive catch radius, go-to guy. Bijan, his receiving ability out of the backfield. If you can add the speed explosion element that Zachariah Branch would bring, I would be very intrigued by that. I'd like to see where that goes. Obviously, quarterback situation is a little up in the air right now, but
I actually think that's partly why he's a good fit. If your quarterback's going to be Tua Tagovailoa, you want guys that can make plays after the catch because he wants to get rid of the ball quickly, right? And I think that's what Branch does as well as any other receiver in the class. Now, maybe he's not going to be Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill, but I do think he's somebody that can help you move the chains and give you some layup targets.
All right, from the highs, the heartbreaks, every headline, this is Stacking the Box, your source for NFL talk, powered by FanSided.com and the voices at FanSided. Marcus, this next one is just too perfect. Like Caleb Banks, the big, athletic, long Planet Theory defensive tackle out of Florida, Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs already have the perfected version of this guy, getting a little bit older now, in Chris Jones. You talk about putting a guy under your wings that could be the perfect Chris Jones understudy, who, I mean, from a physical standpoint, Marcus, has every bit of that upside. Whether you can get it out of him or not, I don't know. But just a perfect fit in Kansas City along that defensive line.
Yeah, and Kansas City's got a pick at 29, which might be a little bit rich for him. They've also got a pick at 40. And to me, that's the perfect spot. You are getting a guy that has all of the physical traits. And you put him behind Chris Jones where he can learn. You put him with Steve Spagnuolo, who can move him all around. They can move him out to 5 technique. They can play him as a defensive end. They can play him as a defensive tackle. I think this is the type of gamble that Kansas City should make because they're going to need somebody to be the force on defense once Chris Jones either retires or starts to really age. And I want him to go to a team that's got a really good coaching staff and knows how to develop these guys. I'm a big fan of Caleb Banks. I understand the risk, but I think at pick 40 and even as high as pick 29 makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really intrigued to see what this guy could be at the next level. Very polarizing because he's an older prospect. The production wasn't there. He's dealing with injuries, got the foot now. It's like, where is that range? Where's the range that's right to take the gamble on this guy? I agree with you. I don't think it probably should come in day one at this point, but somebody is getting a potentially really good football player. The Chiefs would be a perfect landing spot. I think a lot of other people, Marcus, would argue there's another Chiefs fit hiding in plain sight too, because of their losses this offseason, because of his skill set. Would be Mansour Delane. Just slot him right in there for Trent McDuffie and basically have him overtake that role.
I mean, I love that as well. Now, the Chiefs typically don't draft cornerbacks that high, but they're also not typically drafting inside the top 10 either.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be very curious to see if Delane is in fact, the pick for them inside the top 10.
All right, Marcus, this next one I came up with it because it's just too easy to see. I mean, what do you do with the guy who projects best as a slot receiver and just a lethal one at the next level? You put him on a team that only has slot receivers. Basically, everybody works from the slot because the bunches are so tight for the Los Angeles Rams. It gives Sean McVay's offense so much flexibility what to do. And I mean, if we're being honest here, look at Lemon from a skill set perspective, so much like Puka in the way that he wins. A more compact version. He's not as big, but he plays so much like Puka Nacua. You talk about the ultimate Puka Nacua insurance policy and handcuff here. If something were to happen to them, their offense would be A-okay with Mekhi Lemon there.
Yeah, and what does Sean McVay want is guys that can win against zone, that can move around and are really good after the catch, and that's Mekhi Lemon. And I think if he's available at pick 13, that's a home run selection. Devontae Adams is in the last year of his deal. Puka Nacua is eligible for a contract, but he's had a pretty tumultuous offseason, right? So you grab a guy in here that can handle a bunch of targets in a win now window, and now you're just loaded with options at wide receiver. I think that's the best possible pick that the Rams could make there. And I think it's a phenomenal landing spot for Mekhi Lemon.
And there's a lot of truth behind the philosophy of let's keep a strength a strength. It's already a strength. They're a wide receiver room, and you have two of the best 1-2 pairings in the league right now, but you never know when that can end. All it takes is another big injury to Puka, bigger than the ones he's had before, Devontae Adams leaving, and all of a sudden you're decimated at the position when you are clearly in a Super Bowl window right now with Matthew Stafford. I mean, it's so close. Last year, if they win the NFC Championship game, they're probably Super Bowl champions over the New England Patriots because they're that talented. Keep a strength a strength. The positional value is obviously important enough. And that fit is just awesome there. I would love to see that, and I would hate it at the same time because he's a guy I would love to have on Pittsburgh's radar with a potential trade up if he can make it past that selection. Marcus, we've got one more here, a guy that you are really high on, and a guy that's just flown up the draft board really as fast as any player in this in the offseason leading up to the NFL draft, and that is Chris Johnson, the San Diego State cornerback. He just has all the tools and tape that you could ask for in a corner. And what do you give up? Like a 16 passer rating this past year? Like, he's phenomenal.
Wild. Yeah, I love Chris Johnson. To me, he's the type of cornerback that Christian Parker, the new defensive coordinator for Dallas, would absolutely love. He's so good against the run. He can play on the outside. He can play in the slot. He's got phenomenal character. And that's one of the things, if you read Dane Brugler's The Beast, you'll say that he just really cares. He's going to play hard on every single snap. He also plays on special teams. I thought he was pretty good at the Senior Bowl as well. The only knock on him is that he played at San Diego State. I mean, that's it. I mean, everything else, he checks the athleticism. He's got the size. He's got the weight. He ran a 4.40 at the NFL Combine. I think for a team like Dallas that desperately needs a cornerback that can come in and play right away, I think he would be a fantastic fit in what they want to run now with Christian Parker.
Yeah, and even with playing at a bit of smaller school level here, I mean, you're talking about a guy that had a 91.9 coverage grade. I think he is scheme proof. I think this would be a great fit for Dallas and top 3 cornerback in the class, right? I mean, I think you and I both have him there. Avion Terrell falling. He's rising. Top 2 for you. We can have that Jermod McCoy conversation sometime here soon. But yes, I get it. I think it's a wonderful fit. All right. This is the Stacking the Box show. It premieres every Tuesday and Thursday evening. Be sure to check it out. You can follow Marcus's awesome work on X at Marcus_Mosher. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jaggi. You can download the Stacking the Box podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check us out on YouTube. You can follow my written work on stillcurtain.com. Marcus's written work on the FanSided NFL Network. Be sure to check out fansided.com for all your daily sports news and opinions. Stay with us as we bring you all the NFL draft coverage over this next week here. Make sure you tune back next time for this show. And thanks again for listening to Stacking the Box.